Everyone, thank you for joining me on this first episode of the podcast for 2024. Shaun Brewster here, flying solo today. Hopefully, you've been tuning in and listening to our podcast episodes in the past. This month, we're going to do something a little bit different. You're going to see a lot of episodes just from me. There'll be a bit of a mixture of other people joining us as well, but a little bit of a new format to kick the year off, which is designed around a particular goal that I've set for myself related to the podcast. I'm going to get more into that in a moment, but I want to start today's discussion around this idea of New Year's resolutions, something that many of us will kick off on January 1st, of course. And I've always thought of New Year's resolutions as a bit of a flawed concept because I know, at least personally, if I've set myself a goal from January 1st, often it'll start off okay. But of course, start of January is often a little bit like holiday time for a lot of people where we have extra time to take on challenges and kind of design our lives and the time that we spend in our lives a little bit more specifically. And then life happens. We go back to work, we go back to sporting or other activities and things that we might participate in. And then our ability to do these new things, add these new ingredients to our life, get interrupted. And often we fall off the perch and we might a little bit down on ourselves and think, well, why couldn't I keep that up? And then this is why I think the idea of a New Year's resolution is a little bit flawed because often we're setting ourselves up for success, not having a real strategy around the goal, but also setting goals that aren't necessarily built on a foundation of intrinsic desire or need to achieve something specific that we really want to go for. And it might be something like, oh, well, summer, I want to have a better body. I want to have more health. I want to have greater flexibility. I want to eat better. I want to sleep better. I want to read more, or whatever it might be. And then you have to ask yourself the question, well, if you haven't been doing those things already, what's the reason? Okay, if you can find a good reason, is that reason strong enough to motivate me to change that thing? Is there an intrinsic desire in that reason, something internal rather than external, that would motivate me to keep doing that thing? And often, if it's something to do with fitness, for example, we go, well, I want to look better. Well, for whom? Like, what are we trying to look? Who are we trying to look better for? And how will we know when we look better enough? Like, how we know when we've lost enough weight? It might be a specific number, fine. How we know when we're strong enough, fit enough. These are hard things to measure to know when you've reached that goal. And therefore, it's hard to know whether you're working towards the goal because you're not hitting milestones, specific milestones. So the design around the goal is very, very important. And so if you are kicking off a New Year's resolution today, I wish you all the best. I hope that you put a bit of a plan in place as to how you're going to maintain it when life starts to happen again, as it always does, as we move through January and into the rest of the year. But whatever goals you've set for yourself, I wish you all the best for 2024. The goal that I set for myself at the beginning of 2023 was to build this thing, the podcast. And I had a bit of a chat with members of my team here at ACE, and we talked about the things that we wanted to grow and develop and sort of expand upon in the business. And one thing I'd been focusing on, sort of sitting in the background, was the podcast. It was fairly new to us at the beginning of 2023. And while I've had a podcast before, I sort of knew the benefits of it. I don't know whether my team necessarily saw it the way that I saw it. I just had this feeling that it would be a real vehicle for us and the business and the messages that we're trying to put out to help educate people and improve their clinical practice over time. And sure enough, as the year went on and we started to produce a few more episodes, we got a few more listeners, and more often people would come up to us saying, hey, I listened to your podcast. Hey, I watched the video version on YouTube. Hey, I listened to your podcast. And it reinforced this idea of that this is a useful vehicle for us to get our message out to the world. And so the need for, or the desire to build this thing was underpinned within that goal. And it spurred us on to do more and more episodes. And we produced almost 30 episodes in 2023, which is not a bad number by all measures. But I had set myself a goal that I could aim towards, or the way to put this is I'd set myself a goal that I can measure success against, which I think is really important. You have to have a measurable outcome. And one thing, if I'd set myself the goal of, okay, let's build this podcast. Well, how do I know if I've succeeded? Right? I've put some episodes out into the world. Maybe some people have listened to it. Don't really know. So my goal was around downloads. That's a very measurable fact. How many people have downloaded and listened to an episode of Ace Audio Podcast. And at the beginning of 2023, we had about 3,000 downloads, which is not a huge number. It's not bad for the amount of time that we've been running. And I'd set myself a goal that I thought was big enough to turn me on and try to to this, which was 10,000 downloads for the year total. So it reached 10,000. So another 7,000 in 2023, which was a huge jump from 2022. Um, and that was going really well. And then life happened. October, late September, October, and then through November and into December, a lot of other things happened. And if I look at my calendar for the year, I could pretty easily point to a whole bunch of things that took up a lot of time and took me away and my focus away from the podcast. And we didn't produce as many episodes in the latter months of the year. And so it's easy to look at that and go, well, it's fair enough. We were busy doing other things in the business and in our lives, and that's okay. And it is okay. But then if I reflect on why didn't I hit that goal of 10,000? Well, there's probably a couple of things. One is I didn't account for that busy period. Two is I didn't front load my goal or front load my strategy, which is what I'm doing this year. And what I mean by front load is you set yourself a goal and there might be a specific timeline. And for me, it was 12 months to reach 10,000 downloads for the podcast. And you can apply this to any goal. And by front loading, I mean I put in a lot of effort, a lot of energy to start. I think this is a great way to approach any challenge is to really front load your effort. And what that does for you is it might mean that you have a huge increase in gains in whatever the particular goal might be in the early part. And that allows a bit more space for things to fall off the wagon a little bit towards the end. So it might be towards the end of 2024, I get busy again. Now, if I hadn't accounted for that, if I don't front load my goal now, then the same thing's going to happen at the end of the year potentially, or it could be the middle of the year, it could be any time. So what I'm doing this year is I'm front loading my challenge now. My goal is no longer 10,000 downloads. We're at about just over 9,000 now. So we fell a little bit short in 2023. So this year I'm going for 30,000, which seems like a ridiculous number to me, but I love ridiculous challenges. I have a history of background in endurance sport, long distance running. And for me, the bigger the challenge, the more motivating, inspiring it was. So I would set myself ridiculous distances to run. With little to no preparation a lot of the time because it really felt like I could challenge myself, something I could sink my teeth into. We've all probably got something like that. And it's like, wow, that scares me a little bit. Then it's a good goal to have. And so the goal is 30,000 downloads for 2024. Now, when I tell my team that, they're going to go, are you sure? Well, here's what happens if I don't succeed. Nothing bad happens if I don't succeed. But if I do succeed, I reinforce to myself that what seems impossible or what seems difficult is achievable. And there's a huge amount of benefit to setting yourself ridiculous challenges that have the potential to be achieved, because if you do achieve them, you give yourself evidence that you're able to achieve seemingly impossible or very, very difficult things. And I'm all for that. So I'm a big fan of that. But if I don't quite hit the mark, nobody's going to come knocking on the door and tell me I did a bad job. It'll just be for me to reconcile. So have a think about the strategy, have a think about how things went over the year, reflect on it. And then in 2025, I go again with a new challenge or a new challenge with a new strategy. I'm going to try out new things. So here's the beautiful thing about New Year's resolutions, providing that they are something for you that you want. If you don't succeed, as long as you look at that lack of success with the right approach, with the right outlook, and provide the period of reflection so that you can sort of really understand why you didn't quite get there. Each year you get a little bit better at achieving your goals. I think I've heard it said before that people often overestimate what they can achieve in a week or a month, and they underestimate what they can achieve in a year or 10 years. And I think that's really true. I love playing the long game, both in business, in any part of my life. It's like, okay, here's my goal for this week and this month. But it's just a stepping stone for the bigger goals, the ultimate goals, which are going to be years and potentially decades down the track. Having that really long game view has really helped me because it teaches you patience, it helps you focus over time, it helps you when you lose focus to come back and know that there's way more time on the trail before we get to the end of the finish line. So 30,000 downloads for the year. So by front loading it this year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to I'm going to rephrase that. I'm not going to try to. I am going to put out 31 episodes in 31 days. And I've struggled in the last year to produce one episode a week. The goal was one episode a week, and I got to, I think, 28 or 29 for the year with the help of my team. I say I, but it was definitely with the help of the team. So thank you, Bo and Elisa, for help, and everyone else who's contributed to the episodes along throughout the year. But this year, I'm aiming for 31 episodes in 31 days of January. So today, on the 1st of January, this is our first episode, and a lot of the topics, the presentations, the discussions will be probably me for the most part, because it's going to be difficult to round up guests to join me for 31 days in a row. But there'll be ideas, things that I've used, tried, or applied, and hopefully things that you'll be able to use, try and apply in your own business, in your own career, in your clinical practice with patients. Some of them will be around business ideas, goals, challenges, goal setting. Some will be around clinical applications and some of the things that we talk about in our courses. And some of the things will be completely different. You might even be joined by some other participants along the way. In fact, I'm sure I will be. So 31 episodes in 31 days is the challenge. That's my way of front loading my year, my goal, so that when I get towards the back end of the year, if I get those hiccups, those hurdles, those challenges, I've done enough work in the first period, in the first part of the year, to hopefully get me the gains that will allow for those unexpected speed humps along the way. So that's the challenge. That's my challenge at this point in time. So whatever challenge you've set for yourself this year, hopefully you can find a way to front load your strategy as well, to put in a lot of effort, maybe in this January period where often, not for everybody, where often we have a little bit more time, a little bit more headspace to think and do and plan and create and achieve things than we might in other times of the year before things get really crazy. Now, if January is not your downtime, maybe you work in hospitality, maybe you do, you've got some family responsibilities at this time of the year, maybe you're traveling, then find a spot. Where else can you front load it? Maybe your way of front loading is setting aside time that was maybe spent on more idle things. Maybe, okay, I really want to achieve something this year in 2024. I don't have a lot of extra time. Where am I going to fit this in? If you audit your days, I think you can find time. It might not be a large amount of time, but you find something. And something pounded it adds up to something a lot larger. So that might be that I typically spend a couple of hours at night just defragging my system in front of the TV. Well, maybe I can sit not next to my significant other and watch TV, but while I'm there thinking about this idea, while I'm there, I pull out the laptop and I do a bit of work. While I'm there, I'm on the phone making some notes about how I'm going to plan my day better for the next day. There's things, little hacks that you can do to make better use of your time. For me, I'll often get up earlier. If I don't have enough time during the day, I'll get up earlier and I'll start work earlier. Or, well, when everyone else, so if I've got a little bit of time now, maybe I can plan out my week a little bit strategically so I can execute a little bit better. Maybe I'll jump on the computer and I've got a few documents that I need to produce for the week, whatever it might be. You can find time. What is dangerous, and something that I've been guilty of in the past, is forsaking sleep, forsaking exercise, forsaking the time that you need to make sure that you've got a full cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. Right? So you have to make sure that you have got the fuel in the tank to be able to do those things that you're setting for yourself. So it comes down to, does your goal have an intrinsic driver within it? Is there something in that goal that spurs you on, it makes you want to achieve it beyond the external recognition, beyond someone else saying, "Oh, you look good," or beyond someone else kind of, ticking a box, where you needs to be something that you can look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and go, "I'm glad I did that, and I'm happier because of having achieved that thing." And so for me, the podcast, I know works well for my business. I know it helps us get our message out to people like yourselves listening to this. And so this is a vehicle that I'm trying to build, something that I want to reinforce this year, which is why I've set this goal, which is why I'm executing it in this way. So hopefully you've taken something of use from today's episode. Like I said, they're going to be shorter. So these will be shorter. They'll just be ideas, little consumable nuggets, hopefully, that you can implement into your own life, work, business, career, whatever. And hopefully you can, get some value from this as we roll out into 2024. So thanks for joining us in this episode. I'll talk to you soon.